Hello, everybody. This is History After Hours podcast season finale. We are wrapping up season 3 with a live podcast at Kollective Coffee Tea in Hot Springs, Arkansas, where the room was full of high school students, and it became a question and answer session. And weirdly enough, politics really didn't come up. We talked mainly about these students' future as far as leaving high school and what they might face, skills they might need in order to have a better chance of being successful. What does that even mean? So we got kind of deep with some philosophical thoughts, but overall, it was a great time. Once again, thank you to Kollective Coffee for having us out, and please find us on Facebook and Twitter or SoundCloud, YouTube, and subscribe to History After Hours. Thank you so much. Enjoy the podcast. Okay, guys.
All right, no, hey, you want to start with this? We
Yeah,
did this question this morning, and I kind of had this out with a couple of my classes. All right, so this morning I was watching TV before I left for work, and there was a report from, actually it was like a news clip of Jimmy Kimmel, and he was out in the streets in London, and he had an analog style clock, and he was stopping people on the streets and just randomly saying, hey, can you tell me what time it is using this clock? And nobody could. And so I was kind of snickering about that, and I thought it was kind of funny, but then I thought, well, maybe that's kind of sad, right? And they followed it up with a report from somewhere in Oklahoma. I don't know if it was OSU or Oklahoma University. And it said that 1 out of every 10 students that they surveyed couldn't read the time off of an analog clock. It had to be digital for them to understand what it was. And so while I was a little disturbed by that, I got to thinking, is that a skill that's no longer necessary? I mean, is it? To me, it seems like it's a practicality. Like, you need to know what time it is. You need to be able to know to read a real clock, not a digital clock, right? And then, but I thought to myself, well, that's just maybe me being old school, thinking that that's a necessity. And I'm kind of asking you, like, nod or show of hands or whatever. Like, do you think that that is a real skill? I'm going to ask you first. Do you think that's a skill that people need? And if not,
I think,
like, what else could be on that list?
Well, there are still clocks, like at courthouse clocks, and in other countries there's clocks hanging up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a useful skill. I don't think it's a necessary skill. I compare it to, in the 1980s, there was an educational reform where English teachers started to teach this thing called shorthand. So it takes regular writing and it shortens it into little symbols. And they thought this would revolutionize speed, and it was there for like 10 years, and then it just went away. So we have done this before. Like, schools do eliminate things that are no longer valid, or so telling time on a real clock face, analog style clock. I don't think that's a life skill that we need.
How many of you actually own a watch with an analog face on it? A few of you? Oh, a lot.
Okay, well, you might want to learn how to do it.
All right.
That's more than I thought.
Yeah.
How many of you wear watches all the time?
Not for decoration, but for, like, real use.
Like, I quit wearing watches years ago, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, can you think of something else that we should eliminate teaching?
Somebody said cursive writing, because we've tried that before. I mean, several years ago they went through a thing in school where they said, well, everybody's going to be keyboarding, and so we don't need that skill anymore to cursive writing. And I know people who struggle to read. If something's written in cursive writing, I know that they have trouble maybe deciphering that. So it seems like writing should always be a skill that you will need. I don't know about cursive necessarily, but maybe, right?
Yeah, I don't write cursive, and I'm fine.
I don't know. I mean,
a requirement on the
to write in cursive specifically.
SAT, or
I don't know.
Oh, I have no idea about the SAT.
Yeah.
Well, that's ridiculous. The last time I wrote in cursive, I was about in 7th grade, and even then, it was a mix of cursive and print. I didn't know how to do capital letters. I still don't. If you tell me do a capital letter G cursive, I'd be like, I have G.
Mine's sort of.
And then I just connect the letters.
I've got some sort of stylized bastardization between print and cursive. You know, I just kind of.
Yeah,
I just kind of made it my own thing, right?
If you just connect the printed letters, that's cursive enough. The argument is, well, you got to learn how to sign your name. No, you don't. You just write your name.
X.
That's what they used to do.
No, you know what it's going to be eventually? It's going to be like either thumbprint or scan the chip in your arm, so you don't even need a signature, right?
Yep. They do that now. Like when you buy a car, there's an option that they could get your thumbprint.
Yeah.
So in case somebody tries to buy a car in your name, it's for your protection. Yeah, really? Giving my thumbprint to a car dealership? That seems like a bad idea all the way around. Now they have my thumbprint. I wonder if these iPhones record your thumbprint and send it somewhere.
Yeah, don't some of your phones have the thing where they can just read your thumbprint? Okay. Yeah. Or the one that records your face. Yeah. Okay.
Probably
face
end up on some murder victim's forehead, my thumbprint, and all of a sudden I'm in jail.
I could see the benefits of maybe a face recognition thing for a car. Like your car won't start unless you're the one sitting in the thing. But then, you get some weird guy who's going to steal your face. And then what do you do, right?
Or you have a heart attack.
We're encouraging murder and mayhem with face recognition. I'm kidding. I don't think that's really what.
Or you're on vacation with your family. They're in the back. You're crossing railroad tracks. You have a heart attack. So they're trying to get to the front to start the car, and they have to they sever your thumb.
Sorry, family. You're fixing to be on the news.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some other things we teach in school that we should eliminate?
Don't say history. Stop.
No. Yeah, definitely not history.
Or math.
Well, this is something we also talked about is there has been a move for the past 25 years to make a well-rounded. This is why you have to take your basics when you get to college. This is why all of you have to take all of this stuff, and a lot of it you don't like. I think there's some merit in taking subjects you don't know much about to see if you like it. But at what point in your life should you be like, look, I don't like math. I'm not good at it. I'm not going to do anything related to math.
3rd grade.
Or history, for that matter. I mean, I think history can make you a more well-rounded person. But, I mean, sophomore year. I mean.
Well, but you know very well that people have been in your class and they go, I didn't really get it until.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes it's a maturity level as well, right?
That's the risk.
Or you catch something that gets your attention for the first time.
Taking college classes or AP classes. Yeah, I mean, in Europe they have, the academy system where you start specializing after 9th grade. But of course, if you're not up to par, they all put them in a room too, which we don't do.
Everybody has a specialized sort of schooling, which is interesting. Yeah. Noah? That we don't teach that we should?
We don't have enough time.
Life skills, maybe. I mean, for real. Well, yeah. I mean, it's easy for me to say, I guess. Let's see. What would it like? How to?
Yeah,
how
practical.
To go,
I've talked to my class about this. They know this stuff. I think.
How to truly fill out a loan application.
What is the importance of credit, and why do you need it?
How to present yourself in front of a judge if necessary. What's the appropriate way to speak to someone who has authority, right? I think that we've sort of lost maybe, yeah. Maybe some economics and some legalities. Yeah. How do you if you need to replace your Social Security card? How do you do that? If you need to transfer your name on a piece of property, how do you do that? So I would think that sort of rudimentary things. A lot of people have to stumble along and figure it out on their own. How do you contact your legislator? That kind of thing.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I was thinking about high school, what's the value of it ultimately? And for most people, and for most things you learn, you're not actually going to retain that knowledge. Like I'd ask you guys how much you remember from your high school math classes, and it's exactly that much.
Nothing.
But
Yeah. I didn't go.
So is the real value of it in the knowledge that's actually contained in the textbook, or just the fact that you're expanding your mind with logic and reasoning?
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing is teaching you to think. Right? I mean, and so all these classes are geared whether you actually appreciate. For example, and I'll use math for an example because I'm not a strong I'm never going to be a mathematician. I can barely spell mathematician.
Not good at English.
When they started putting letters in my numbers, I freaked. You know what I mean? And I was having enough trouble with fractions. And then they throw in letters, and I'm like, oh my God, just kill me now. But at the same time, I understood the practicality of it. It took me a while to kind of get that, but then the idea that it's a number puzzle, and I need to try to work that through, just the ability to think my way through something, even if I don't enjoy it, that's something that's that's an adult skill that you're going to need.
I think
be able
the
to do.
actual biggest benefit of school,
Now-
and I'm saying public education from K to 12, is social development. Being able to be in a group dynamic, being on a just learning how to interact with humans, because that's something. How you figure that out in high school helps you. Knowledge, you could go from 9th grade to college and be fine. You can make it if you have enough effort. But the social aspect of high school, particularly, is important. I think that really helps you. Yes.
Okay, so let's say we did have like these hypothetically life choice classes or life design. Do you think that there would be a greater society if we did, or like a greater generation as they come about?
I would convince students to don't automatically think you have to go to university systems, because I think all that's changing anyway. I think it would help people as soon as they leave their parents' house and they have to go off on their own. That's where it would kick in. How to rent an apartment, how to do your finances, savings account versus
How to fill out an application for a job and then win an interview for that job. Like interview skills are maybe something we should really focus on a lot more for people your age in particular, right? How do you present yourself? Because I've before I was a teacher, I was in business and I had to hire and fire people, and you would be surprised, maybe you wouldn't, the number of people who would come through and not have a clue on how to present themselves in a positive way so that they could then have a chance on getting the job that I was offering, right? And especially as you go into more professional settings, right? As it gets more exclusive and you're trying to compete for different kinds of jobs that may pay a better rate, like how you present yourself is how you speak to people and how you like practice.
It's not even how good you would be at the job.
Have you ever practiced presenting who you are to someone, trying to convince them? Like it's a persuasion thing, right? Like when, for instance, when I was hired at Lakeside, and Kevin knows this as well, like it's a committee interview. Like where you go into a room cold with people you don't know and no telling what they're going to ask you, and then there's this barrage of questions, and what could they, and for us being history teachers, like the idea that they could ask us anything in an 8,000-year span is a little intimidating if you don't know what you're talking about. So how do you come in there and show them? And besides that, a lot of jobs, and for instance the one that we have, like it's highly competitive. Other qualified people wanted those jobs too. How do I win that? Like you have to sort of practice presenting who you are.
And it's not the smartest person gets the job. It is here's the list of things. I was an administrator, dean of students on hiring committees, and here's the first thing you go, is this going to be a danger to students? Is this person shifty? Is this person going to get us into trouble? Is this person going to get us in the news for bad reasons? Those are the main things. Like how does this person actually present? How are they dressed? That stuff is first before you get to can this person actually teach?
Yeah. Another thing, grammar.
Yeah.
Just grammar skills.
And speaking with confidence, that goes a long way. Like just being able to speak. And I know this is why we do discussions, because we want you to get used to that. And some of y'all are born with it, and some of you are scared. I was a quiet kid. I wouldn't say a word. When I was in class, if we had discussions like we do in my room, I would have been in the back not saying a word. I'll just take the hit with the participation at the end. But somewhere, I don't know when, I grew out of that in college or beyond. So I was a late bloomer. But I think that's a key skill. So it doesn't even matter what you know. If you can fake it and act, just convince them that you're going to
here's
be good.
A good example, too. Have you ever had a teacher that you knew was brilliant but couldn't teach?
Yes,
Because
most of my college professors.
They don't know how to communicate well with other people. To be able to convey knowledge to other people is a skill in and of itself. Knowledge is one thing. How you then give that, right?
Yeah, for most of you, you've had the best teachers you're already going to have. Because in college, there's a lot of professors that they're not good, they just drone for 50 minutes. They take one big breath at the beginning of class, la da 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 da, and they might not be saying anything that's even relevant on the test or anything, and then you just go away, and then you come back 2 days later and they do it again. And
I had a history
You know.
teacher in college that, honest to God, had the same set of notes that he wrote in 1965, and he read from them verbatim, just blah, blah,
Oh, I
blah,
think I know who
blah,
you're
blah,
talking
blah, 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 and this and this and this, and then see ya, and then you were like, oh my God, what was I supposed to learn from that? And then you have to go off and figure it out on your own.
To
So
be a
it's
college
good.
professor, you don't have to take
But
any
he's-
teaching classes.
Yeah, but I like the
You just-
guy. He's really smart, but he couldn't
Right.
convey.
You just have to
And I
get a
think that's
doctorate,
important.
and then you're all of a sudden in front of students because you couldn't find anything else to do with that doctorate degree. So you have a PhD in history. It's like, what do I want to do? I guess I'll teach. And then you're in front of students trying to teach, and you've never had any teaching classes.
Have you ever seen that movie Megamind? You know, remember, like the key phrase from that movie is when he's coming out of the thing, he's like sliding out of the thing. He goes, the thing that you're liking, he goes, presentation, right? Like that's you have to be able to present, you know. And I think that's a big difference too. And I think that you probably know teachers who are presenters rather than communicators. Yeah, there's a difference. Communicating something deeper than just the base knowledge itself is important. So,
But you guys
so
do
what
this.
I'm saying, hold on. So what I'm saying is that you learn that skill, learn to present to people, right? But communicate who you are through that as well.
Well, the
Right,
thing
right.
is, they know how to do that, but they do it through social media.
Yeah.
Have you ever
Oh.
been to a person's social media, Instagram, whatever, and then you see the person in the hallway? It's like, that is not the same. They are presenting a whole different human than what I interact with every day at school. So think about your social media and what you look like and how I'm into this and this, and then think about how you act at school. Are those two different people? Because at some point, the human part of you is going to have to interact. And some of you are already really good at presenting yourself. And I've already harped about this. It is time, if you haven't, to get a professional. No, you need to get rid of the email that is whatever, Noah Daddy 34 at sexy whatever. Get rid of that. Start a new one. So it's time to all your Instagram. Listen, be careful. I'd be careful, especially if I was 18. I would be careful about pictures. Because you know what? If you want to go get a job, the first thing they do now, right? They search you.
Search your social
So they're going to
media.
look through your stuff. That's your resume. So you're creating your resume whether you like it or not.
How many of you would be fearful if an employer said, "Okay, but before you're almost hired, but first we want to see your phone"? Like, how many of you would be afraid to actually hand that? Now, I mean, privacy issues, I understand. Okay, but just imagine for a moment that they're not going to ask you that, but imagine that they would, right? Free access to everything you've been doing. Here's the real you. Would you be afraid to hand that phone over? Yeah. I'm not asking you for it. I'm saying, huh?
I don't think any person would be okay with that because everybody's got something they don't want to see.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, if it's on the phone, you're communicating it to someone. Yeah. And if you're communicating to someone, it can be found.
I've had to walk this balancing act. I've been in a band for 20 years. And I started, this band I'm in now, Sensory 2, started the same year I started teaching. Do you know how precarious that was for a long time, especially where I started at Sheridan, which is a super conservative, So I had to be very cognizant of pictures of me in places. And, I had to, because all this was exploding at the same time. You need to be doing that, thinking about what picture is being presented to the world. If they don't know anything about you and they just started looking through your accounts, what would they think of you? I mean, that's fine. Yeah, that's good.
And I know people who are like, I don't care what people think about me. Wrong. Like, that's just a wrong statement. You need to care what people think. Don't judge me. You don't know me. Guess what? You will be judged, and you'll be judged on your character. What have you done? It's going to happen. You cannot avoid that. You can't avoid that. No matter how many times you say, don't judge me, it's going to happen. On what are you going to be judged is the question, realistically.
And there's things you can do on your social media that is the equivalent of a face tattoo. Don't make that decision when you're 20 thinking, nah, I'm never going to, and you do something crazy, and now it's all over the place, and there's no way to get it back, and then you're scarred. So be very careful with all that now, especially your freshman year. Okay, I think we've beat that.
That was a good one, though.
Yeah. I'm still thinking about skills we don't need.
All right, so now, do you think that it is necessary for people to learn how to read a paper map? You know what I'm saying?
Well,
before there was GPS and all that stuff, we had to learn to read maps. If we're going somewhere, you got to trace it down on the thing and what route next. I still like them because of that, but I know a lot of people don't. Yeah. Yeah. Emergencies. Yeah. It seems like
Yeah.
it would need to be in case the electronics went out. Yeah, as a backup, at least backup skill.
Yeah, I think so.
Driving
For now.
driving a standard transmission automobile.
I learned on one, but I don't think they do.
Yeah.
How many of you have
how many of you
never
can drive?
never driven on a? Raise your hand if you've never driven a stick shift. Stick shift, clutch. How many of you have?
That's more than I thought it would
It's
be.
more than I thought. Do they make them anymore?
Do you have to special order it? That seems weird.
I don't know. I always thought it was cool until I got on a hill, and then I'm like, oh
What about looking things up in a phone book?
no. Every time we get the
Seems
phone
easy.
book, I just like, oh, they printed a portion of the internet for me to throw away.
Are phone books
Awesome.
necessary?
I know.
It is a yeah. I'm saying it seems like a waste. We get one like every 3 months. Seems like.
Yeah, all that stuff. We need to get rid of the phone book for sure.
Oh, a subscription-based thing? Yeah, maybe. Okay, here's one we just had that's sort of relevant, but some of you passed this. Is prom still relevant? Should we have prom? Why?
So people can get suspended. That's right.
So
We'll set traps.
if we don't have prom, we don't have the problems that come with prom, and it's expensive. It's really expensive. Huh?
Can we breathalyze and drug test at prom?
Breathalyzer to get into prom. Breathalyzer to get out of prom.
You're just trapped. There'll be a cop car over here and then the freedom over here. It's just like breath. No.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, but I'm serious about that. Like, why would prom still need to be a thing?
Yes, that I agree.
Oh, yeah.
Have your own prom. do
Having
what you
having
wanna
parents
do.
take it over might be a good plan. Yeah. But it's not like this gigantic social interaction that it used to be. It just seems like this. It's almost like you feel obligated to do it, so you do. But it's
There's-
not like you don't interact with each other all the time anyway. So why is
Once
this
again,
thing important?
As a former administrator, there's no upside for the school. This is the only thing is for you guys. The whole prom thing is just for you. So I think y'all should take it.
Even
The
when we
junior
were in school, it
class
was a
should be in
giant liability.
charge. Just let them go have it somewhere off campus and leave the school out of it.
Yeah.
But that would be a hassle. You would need a prom committee that would have to do it and get with parents and get the resources. So, yeah, I think it would get dropped. I think if it was left up to just students to do it, no school would help. I think it'd be like, let's not do it.
The budgeting.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a side note. Ready? This came up in my Euro class today. How young is too young to get a cell phone? How old are we? Who's the youngest person here? I'm looking for the youngest cell phone owner. You were 5? Huh? What? Kindergarten? 5? Okay, 4, 5, 5.
Okay, my stepson got one at 11
I still don't have one.
with all the parent locks and all that on it. But he just plays games on it.
Yeah.
And he has no like real internet. We have to give him internet. So it's just basically it's a phone he can call,
Yeah.
but if he can text and play games, and that's pretty much all he can do with it. Now when he gets older, obviously,
I've seen people handing babies cell phones though, right? It just seems like a bad plan. Noah.
my daughter at 3 just walked up to the TV and was like, "Daddy, it won't get bigger."
She's trying to make the-
I had it paused, and she was 3. I'm like, "Oh no!"
She thought the TV was a touchscreen?
She thought the TV was a touchscreen. Yes.
Social media is essentially like the call function. I get like texting or whatever you need when you're young, however young. But, like I don't think there's anybody that had a cell phone when they were in middle school that doesn't like read every single thing they did on social media. Like, it was
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the thing is he doesn't have social media account, so that's like we don't let him. We parent lock that thing where.
It
Yeah.
seems like a pitfall, though. You know, it's so laced with problems that we didn't give our children cell phones for a long time. Right?
Yes.
But right. Yeah, the internet is wonderful for a lot of reasons, but the idea that you could go off the deep end pretty quickly into some things that maybe questionable activities and behavior, and it's just things that you're not cognitively ready for, maybe even as adults, but children are watching these things, right? I would say the same thing about DVDs and movies on demand. Like, there are kids that are watching things that children. I know that we've talked about this before. The idea that little kids have seen all these horror movies, and things that give adults nightmares, but little kids have seen them, and they kind of joke about, oh, I've seen all the Saw movies, and I'm really, like, that's disturbing to me. They think that they've done that, and they're okay with it, and they kind of laugh about it. Like, there's a dehumanizing factor. Yes. Swiping. They don't read how to read a book because they try to swipe the page instead of turn the page. That's interesting. Wow.
But, with all this stuff that you're exposed to, at the same time, parents are becoming more obsessive, tracking their kids' every move, helicopter parent, and I don't think that's good either.
No.
So with the technology, it's give and take. Yes.
You think in the 1500s people had conversations like this about the printing press?
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Picking up books?
how young is too young for a book?
This was going to kill handwriting. Where's my feather?
Yeah. The quill.
Well, I think it's up to the parent, really.
As parents, we are legally obligated to take care of you, but also to give you guidance and keep you to help you function through. And I think that from just a security standpoint, there's a certain obligation that we have to know what, maybe not the deepest, darkest, whatever, like the private feelings or whatever. I like Jimmy and he doesn't like me. Like, no, I don't care about that. But I'm talking about things that might be endangering you. Our parents need to know that. But how can they help you?
I know this will be a little politically incorrect, but I think it also determines if you have a son or a daughter. You can't treat them exactly the same in things, Yes.
Generations before, no tracking. Well, yeah, I'll give you a prime example of that. Like 30 years ago when I was you, my parents didn't know where I was half the time. And they had to learn to be okay with that, and I had to learn to be responsible enough to function and get back home. I know. Okay, so from your perspective then, do you think that the cell phone technology, the ability to track you at every moment, to know how fast you're driving at every moment, to know whether you arrived at Johnny's house when you were supposed to be at Jenny's house, or to look back and see where you've been. Do you think that's problematic? Not because I think you're doing something wrong, but the idea. Do you think that it's causing parents and children an undue amount of stress because you're always sort of I can't get away from Being a parent, I'm going to tell you, it's scary to let your kids go off and do things. It's a scary thing to say, I'm not going to be there because, again, if you've spent your entire life, I've spent your entire life making sure that you're going to make it, and then all of a sudden I got to learn to let that go and go, okay, I trust it's going to work out. Like, that's scary for adults. I'm telling you, it's scary for parents. But at the same time, you got to be able to let them do things because they can't function as adults if they don't do anything without you.
There is something proactive you can do now if you haven't already done this. Most of you probably have. You need to tell your parents, I'm going to get myself up. I'm responsible for getting myself up in the morning and getting to school. If your parents are still dragging you out of bed from 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, you're setting yourself up for failure. Come on, the bus is going to, or whatever. You're going to be late. You need to do that because you're going to have a rude awakening your first year of college.
Huh?
Parents get children up, and it is a thing. I'm not saying that's anybody
Since
in
when?
here.
Okay, it happens.
But if your parents have to drag you out of bed in the morning, that's not good for you. Because it's coming where you're going to have to just make that decision.
You know
on
what I
your
think
own.
is funny? I know that we teach with people who say, you must teach responsibility. It's not my job to teach you responsibility. You're going to learn responsibility sooner or later. I hope it's sooner, but sooner or later, you're going to learn to be responsible because the first time you miss a house payment or a car payment or you don't show up for your job when you were supposed to, like those responsibilities are laying on you, you're going to learn responsibility the hard way. Unfortunately, if you can get that going right now when it's still safe to kind of be, kind of knuckleheadish, then I think you'll be better off. But you're going to learn. You're going to grow up. You're going to adult.
I had a student today come up to me and say, "Thank you so much for passing me. It's been with me all year. and didn't realize I don't pass anybody. I don't fail anybody. You know how I am. You just do it, and whatever you get, you get. And she acted like I helped her out. I didn't help. She did it. You know. So that's how I do that. I don't bump up anybody's grades. You just get what you get. And I know in your junior year especially, it's probably been kind of taxing because I think some of you have hit that wall where teachers aren't helping you out as much as they used to. But that'll help, I think, in the long run. If you've been able just to get out and get it.
I'm not going to call anybody out by name, but just
I will.
Show of hands if it's safe to do so if parents aren't around you. Like, how many of you have helicopter parents? Okay. Just yeah. Yeah. I don't mean just concerned. I mean like hovering. All that. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So how has that affected you think? Yeah. Huh? A better liar because. To try to. So they'll feel okay enough to leave you alone so that you can get some space.
That's actually not a bad point. Wow, I never thought about that. Helicopter parents force their kids to lie to keep their parents sane. But, you know, that's interesting.
If your parents knew everything you did every moment of the day, wouldn't that have driven you crazy? I'm asking you, yeah.
Oh, I can't even imagine that. Yeah.
No, we didn't grow up. I mean,
we just left the house and walked around and hooked up with other kids our age and then just took off.
My mother was fairly, I don't want to say overprotective, but almost, because my older sister was born with disabilities, and she was real concerned about my well-being because my sister had major health problems. But at the same time, she was strong enough to let me go and do things. Like I said, but if she knew, and I'm not saying that you should hide things from your parents, but at the same time, we kind of took advantage of the freedoms that we had, you know.
But it also depends where you live, what you're like.
Right, yeah, I mean, we weren't like...
risk factors. I think everybody's... You know, your parents are going to screw you up in their own specific way anyway.
I'm not saying that we were
just like I'm going to do that to my, you know, nothing's perfect. It's a case-by-case basis.
But I enjoyed, I couldn't wait to learn to drive because that was a sense of freedom for me, right?
Yeah.
I've been driving since I was 12,
yeah.
Right? I mean, on the street, not legally the whole time, but I mean, I was out doing it.
I was 14 or so.
I love to drive, and I think that was part of it, right? The idea that you get out and just go and be and do, like and I still like that because of it. But she had to trust that I was still going to be okay, and even though that was difficult, you know, it was better for me to be able to go like that. Now, yeah. Yeah. So how does it feel to be tracked all the time? So I'm curious. Does it make you feel safer? No.
Do you feel like your parents don't trust you? That's true.
I mean, that's a viable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, honestly, I mean, you're going to have to do it on your own sooner or later, right? But like I said, try to see it from their point of view too, you know. So that's where it gets tricky, right? Because they don't want to step on your toes, but at the same time, they're really concerned about your safety.
Didn't Will Smith write a song called "Parents Just Don't Understand"?
Parents just don't understand. It's the same every
generation. Yeah.
Yep. So yes, ma'am.
Well, and it's like with helicopter parents, you kind of feel stuck. So it's like you feel like you have to rebel to like get out of the box.
So you think that it creates a little sense of extra rebellion, maybe, or rebelliousness?
Like, especially like once you leave the house, like you're in college, and then like you have all the freedom and you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, that's a real problem.
Yeah. You just kind of go, hey.
The kids. This is why this goes back to my. If your parents have to drag you out of the bed when you become a freshman in college, and if you're off by yourself in an apartment or in a dorm room, and it's all on you, you might not know how to handle it, and you start missing classes. And then all of a sudden you've got straight Fs.
But that's not good for
them
either.
How many people
you know?
do I know that ended up with a 1.3 GPA and left after their first or second semester in college? I mean, I know so many people. I was in an apartment building. We said we were commuting, but we got an apartment building. There was probably 20 kids from my school with me, you know, in that 4 or 5 rooms or whatever it was. I was the only one that made it to my third year. All of those people went away because they partied and they didn't go to class and they, for whatever reason. So that you just
Do
got.
you think that's because you had a greater sensibility about? I mean,
I had to work.
Working on a farm. You had to work, and you had
Yeah.
responsibilities, right? So do you think that factored into that?
What got me through is knowing if I quit, I'd end up being on that farm forever. So there was a fear. It was just fear. I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't know this. I didn't want to be anything. I just wanted to go home.
You wanted to not be something, right? That was the motivator. Yeah.
I just looked at teachers and went, I could do that. But I'm going to coach. That's what I wanted to do. And, it's weird because you have a lot of people putting pressure on you right now going, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to? It's okay if you don't know. I didn't know. In my senior year of college, I didn't know. So, I mean, just what you don't want to do is get in debt. Don't go to university just because you think you have to. Unless, it's paid for, and all that. And don't be so sure that you know what you want to do, because that can definitely change in the next year or two, especially when you start, you need to go right now and go to the people. Like if you think you already know what you want to do, go to the people that are already doing that. Follow them around. Go show up at their job, whatever it may be, and say, hey, can I follow you around today to see if I really want to do this? Instead of enrolling in college and not really, I'm going to be a physical therapist. That's what I want to be. That sounds fun. And then your third year before you start doing your observations and realize, Lord, I don't want to do this. This is horrific.
Do you know people that went through the education
me.
program and said, I know people that got to their internship, like actually practice teaching, and they go, I don't think this is for me. I mean, that's a scary moment for a lot of folks. But what happened? They didn't do enough preparatory time ahead. They didn't go shadow enough, and they didn't really because the way that they teach you about teaching is very different than teaching. So you need to go be and do and see what people are actually doing, what they're having to deal with at different schools, because you never know where you're going to end up. That's another thing too. If you're going to be a teacher, I would suggest that you go and get as much hands-on experience as you can, shadow people and see. And I guess it's true for any other occupation too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Teaching's, you already are exposed to teachers, but you don't. You still don't know what it takes. You don't know what we do behind the scenes and repetitive nature of teaching, especially history. In August, I start all over. Let's go, Christopher Columbus. Here we go. Mm-hmm. That takes a certain thing, to get that energy
drive.
back and do it all. Wall people, ready? Number one. And I explain it every day. So you really need to get out already. As soon as you can, go find people that do what you think you want to do and see if you really want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I see a lot of people nodding. Yeah.
Doesn't that repetition come with most jobs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to have a skill, and you're going to do it over and over and over. You're going to get really good at it, and somebody's going to pay you.
Yeah, but the difference is that in most jobs, it's kind of just going to be you and maybe a couple of other people. Like we're on stage, and we have to keep up a level of intensity to the energy that how many times have I told the Mongol story, and how many times can I tell the Rasputin story and still make it a show every single time? That takes practice, but you've got to gear yourself up mentally, right? And I'll give you a great example. I've had students come and go, Mr. Franklin, you're always here. Yeah, I always show up for work. I'm always here. Well, you're always in a good mood. Yeah, I'm always in a good mood. Why? Because I practiced that, right? I practice. I'm not a morning person. You have
fake it until you
have
make
me
it.
first period. I'm sluggish, but I fake it until that's what you just said. Fake it till you make it. You just sort of go into that mode, right? You have to do that with everything. Everything's repetitive. But we have an audience, and not every job has that, right?
The talking in front of people and the teaching part was kind of easy for me to get going. The hardest part was waking up in the morning and putting on slacks. Like just dressing up every day, like putting a collar shirt. It's so, because all I did was T-shirts and, jeans every day. And that was hard, being an adult and just dressing up. Because, I grew up on a farm. Nobody cares what your hair looks like. They still don't. But that was a big adjustment, just doing that.
Or do the opposite and say, well, I'm going to work in a cubicle. That to me, that would be so monotonous, right?
I like structure. I'll tell you what I love about teaching is I know what I have to do. I know I'm going to get weekends off. They're not going to call me in. That would kill me because I'm not spontaneous. Mm-hmm. I want to know what's in front of me. But some people love that. They love the change. So teaching but a cubicle. Mm-mm. Just sitting there staring at a screen all day.
No.
Like I got to be able to get up. But see, I'm not a people person. Like I don't like this. It's fine. But you learn to like it. My first year, I don't really like, I just thought I would work alone, like my dad did. He's a farmer. I feel that in me. Like every morning the bell rings and
You're
people
an
start coming in
isolationist.
first period, I'm just like, oh boy, here we go. But then I figured it out, and it's fine. And I love my job, but it took a few years.
You know what? It's weird because I'm the exact opposite. Like I like the interaction. I mean, that's part of the reason why I show up as early as I do, because I'm like, who can I see first? Who's going to be the first one to come in? Who can I talk to? I like that sort of back and forth banter and questioning, and I like that, right? So that's
obvious.
But you're good at what you do, even though you have a different approach, right? That's what I'm saying. So you learn.
You got to teach to your personality.
That's right.
I can't be in the hallway going, hey, how was your weekend? Wait, I don't care.
I can't teach. I can't teach the way he does. He's an expert in his knowledge base and the way he presents that. But you can't. So part of what I'm saying is, don't try to be somebody else. Yeah, like you got to do it the way you do it. And so that's why I was going back to the thing about they don't teach you how to teach in teaching school, because you don't know how to do it until you do it. Maybe sometimes, like what's going to be your version of getting this done? Like we all had to kind of come up with our own little spiel. Like here's what my thing is, and if I try to teach like somebody else, it's not going to be as effective.
Yeah, as much as we talk, you think our classes would be real similar.
Yeah.
And they're not at all.
No.
And it's just because we have such different personalities with the way we interact with people.
But both equally successful. So find what works for you, right? That's part of what we're trying to get across. Yes.
You said something earlier about how you don't want to work in a cubicle.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone sets out like, oh, I want to work in a cubicle.
I don't know. And I think like accountants, they're like just sort of with the numbers and the thing, and I think that's okay. That little space works for them, but I couldn't do it. And maybe it's because I'm not a numbers guy. Maybe that's the difference, right?
I mean, I wonder what percentage of people do.
Some people like that space. They very personalize it. It's my space. Like I don't care. I just.
Well, we work in a cubicle. It's just a big cubicle where other people come in and sit.
So,
because
but it's interactive.
But some people want to be outdoors. Some people want that travel.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want any of that. I wanted to know. I love that my life is controlled by bells. That's fine, because I know I can play music. I know when I'm home. That means a lot to me. But it might not to somebody else. So I love summer breaks, spring breaks, all that stuff.
Before I got into teaching, I was in retail management, and I averaged 93 hours a week. In the last 3 years I was in it, I didn't have a vacation, not one. And
that
so
sounds
this
miserable.
is like glorious that I've got as much time as I do with my family, and we can go and be together. And because my wife teaches too, so it's just been this perfect.
Yeah, that's something else too. Is things can always be worse. Every time I hear a teacher complain, especially at the school I'm at now, I thought, go get you some of that school. Get you about a week of that. You'll be banging on the door at Lakeside. Please let me back in.
Yeah.
Because I've been in some rough situations.
How many of you guys have been at Lakeside your whole time? Yeah.
All my life.
A lot of you. So, but it's true. Yeah, if you are in another school as a student, or if you were in another school as a teacher, like you'll recognize that it's very different in every one of those places. You can say, well, school across America, it's very different depending on where you are, right? So
sometimes they try to micromanage. The administrators are always, do you have your lessons plans? Just let me do. So I love Lakeside because I saw one for a minute. Administrator.
They kind of let us do what we need to do, right?
Yeah, it's great. That's I want. Somebody said, what do you want from your administrators? And I'm like, to be left alone. Yeah. Just let me do my thing. I don't want to do a lesson plan.
Well, but
doing that.
Here's the thing. You're trustworthy enough to let that happen. So it kind of goes back to the responsibility thing, right? We've proved that we're trustworthy. There are other teachers where the administrators are in there a lot, right?
Yeah, if they knew the administrators weren't coming by, it's a free day, everyone. Yeah.
Have you ever seen those people who go, oh my God, I'm being evaluated. I got to do something special. If you're doing something special just because the administrator's going by, you're screwing this up. Like you should be doing something special every dang day, right? You should be on every time. Don't wait for somebody to come by.
They email you like, when would be a good time and period for me to come by? I'm like, anytime.
Yeah.
Just show up.
I need to get busy. The boss is coming. No, just be busy all the time.
You've got teachers, don't you? You better be good. You better be good. I'm getting observed. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. No, it's okay. How relevant is the dress code? Everybody needs to wear clothes. I think we need to start with that basic idea. Wear clothes in public.
Here's where this is a big deal because you've never had a dress code and they decided to switch on you and it's causing you all sorts of trouble. Every other school I've ever been to has a dress code, and it's a lot stricter than yours. So even now...
What did you have at Sheridan? Did you have a dress code?
Yeah, dress code.
You
well,
did?
I mean,
like strict dress code.
3 inches above the knee for girls.
Yeah.
3, it's possible. Believe it. It is. It is. Here's what I think about the dress code. I don't care. I mean, just wear what you're supposed to wear, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Why is it a big deal?
The big deal is that some girls aren't dress coded enough.
Well, wait, okay. Well, what's the part of the dress code that
consistency
bothers
with
you?
enforcement.
What's the part that bothers you?
The change.
The shorts or the shoulders or the no hats or the...
I don't see like why it's a big deal. It's like I understand like if you're wearing like booty shorts and it's literally a show and everything, but like
Yeah.
wear Nike shorts every single day.
Right.
They're not trying to like distract anyone.
I think y'all are the only school that gets away with those Nike shorts too. That's what I heard. Because my first day, I remember I'm dean of students at Bismarck. I enforced dress code, and I came here, and my first day at Lakeside, I was in the doing hall duty, very first day, and I'm just sitting there going, just like, I couldn't get, because I was so used to, I could not believe y'all could wear that. And I talked to Mr. Orr, and he said, that's just not something we're gonna focus on academics. That's not a hill we're willing to die on kind of thing. And that's the way it was for year after year, and y'all just got used to it. I mean, I'm sure some things got enforced, but then this year, it was getting a little too...
Yeah, apparently. I think what it boils down to is that you've got some knuckleheads who abuse the... Right? And then everybody has to pay the price for that. I think that's what it is, though, because if one goes, then all of a sudden it sets a weird precedent, and then they have to kind of crack back down. So, yes.
Also, like, there are different leg lengths, right? So it's hard for like 6 inches above the knee. It's a lot different spot for some people than it is for other people.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know. Well,
you got, and especially girls, you know when you wear something that might not be appropriate because you're always pulling and tugging or having a coat that you put on for a minute and then, okay, I'll take this off. I mean, you know. So it's just...
To me, though, it's... If I'm preoccupied with what someone is wearing, if it's not blatantly problematic and disruptive in the classroom, I'm pretty much going to go on and do my job and not worry about. I understand that the school board has a dress code policy and we want to enforce it, but at the same time, I'm here to teach. Like if I spent all my time just measuring shorts above knees and whatnot, then I don't get the teaching part done, which is actually the most important thing. So we have to find some sort of happy balance because we are required to follow the rules that the administration of the school board puts in front of us. But at the same time, I have to teach, right? So there's certain things I'm just going to be blind to unless it becomes a problem. Kind of like the cell phones. It's not a problem unless it's a problem, right? So everybody if you basically cooperate, then everything should be fine.
And this year, you're just going to have to adjust.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they'll have a structure and a standard in place at the beginning of school next year.
Well, like I said, there are people who are genuinely pushing the limits on that of what's acceptable, and then they crack down. I think that's really what it boiled down to.
Things that were pushing the limits that got us in the mess that we're in right now are the ones that are still wearing things that they aren't allowed.
Well, I don't know.
I say tattletale.
I don't know what to say about that.
Tattletale. Turn them in.
If you don't want it to turn into this, but you don't want to turn into a police state where all they do is like come here and they grab people out of the house constantly. Like, well, I don't think to the point that it could be worse. It really could. Yeah.
School uniforms.
You know what?
Because they're still going to figure out a way to wear them.
From what I've heard, having uniforms is actually more problematic.
That's what I've heard
than
too.
Just whatever kids want. Yeah, I've heard that from schools that have had them before. Yeah. So, Carly. Yeah, which one? Yeah. Okay, so what was the biggest problem with uniforms? That the students were responsible for buying them? Yeah. Oh.
That's capitalism.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Every school deals with this. This is one of the 4 or 5 things that every school has trouble with.
We were pretty fortunate, though. They didn't really. I guess we had a dress code, but we were pretty. It was pretty lax, seemingly. I don't remember anything being like. Of course, you came along later than I did. right? I graduated in the 80s.
Yeah, I don't even
So,
remember.
I don't know. Like, we wore hats, and girls wore, what do you call those, the spaghetti strap things? Like, people had shoulders, and we saw them, and it wasn't like it was changing our academic standards. Huh? I don't know. I mean, from what I've heard, there's a distraction, but I don't get that. I mean, I don't know.
Of course, we had a smoking area.
Yeah, that's true, too. We
And,
had students
people-
had a smoking area on campus, and sometimes the teacher would go and bump cigarettes from the students.
Yeah.
It was
It's a different
little,
time.
Now it seems awkward. Then it was normal. Huh? A vaping area? Yeah, it's
Not
called-
yet.
Yeah. What's the appeal of vaping? I don't get it. Yeah, all of a sudden, and I'm looking right at you. I don't know why. No, seriously, is it because it's like is it flavored? Is that a thing? Yeah. I just don't get it. It seems unnecessary. Yeah, I know, but I don't get that either. Well, if you're going to continue, do people start vaping because other people are vaping because it doesn't look cool at all. It looks really dumb. All of a sudden, this explosion of vapor comes out of a person like that's weird. Like what just happened? What just?
They just caught on fire.
Look how edgy I am. I can vape. I don't know. Yeah. Look how edgy I am with my mango flavored cigarette thing. Oh, I know. I'm right.
I wonder,
I'm so
because
super
you were saying socially, your school, public school here in America, it dominates your life. Like as a kid, like if you go to Europe, they come over here and they're just like, wow, school is so long, and then you have extracurricular and sports tied into it. Like they can't imagine, like your whole life is your school. All your friends are here.
As opposed to the Japanese who take a break and go back at 7 and continue to school until 9.
Well, that's true. But it's just the way it is. It's so, I don't know that there's a better way. I don't know. But usually, like when I was a kid, people left at like noon to go work.
Yeah, there was work. We had work passes. A lot of kids had to go and work to help support their family or whatever. And so you go, I mean, you still graduated, right? Like we've
Right,
changed that. I don't know when.
Like a Job Corps thing where you could, you left early and all that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I can't hear you. Speak up. What? It's just a standard they've put in place. So, I think.
Well, yeah, a lot of it comes from the State Department. I mean,
Yeah, it's
we
not.
can't
It's not
control
totally our thing. So, but at the same time,
liability. That's
Lakeside particularly wants to show that it has rigid standards, and that's something that helps prepare students for, the academics that you may be heading off into, whatever. That's the idea. This is sort of as a junior and senior in particular, like you're becoming a professional student, right? And to have a full workload as a professional student is important, right? I can't hear you. Yeah, that's an interesting.
I mean, I don't know how good substitutes were when we had them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Is it better? It saves the school a lot of money by doing that.
Right.
But
when my first year at Lakeside, there was the sophomore group. I guess they graduated in 2012. That actually bragged to me that they were responsible for running off about 4 or 5 different subs. Like apparently one of them was found under the desk in a fetal position. So I mean, this seems better than that,
I subbed for a semester. It was the worst job I ever had, which that was the only job other than teaching I've ever had.
I feel bad for substitutes because they're walking into somebody else's classroom with kids they don't know, and everybody's going to lie to them about who they are, and they're trying to irritate them. I mean, I know there are students. Some subs are really good, like they're really engaging and interacting, but others, it's almost like this battle of wills with the students that they're trying to watch over. And all they're really trying to do is to get you through the day, but it seems like this competition to see who can irritate whom fastest. I really, it's got to be a tough gig for, you know,
Oh, it
especially if you're
is.
not good at it.
Yeah. I was young, too. Like, I graduated kind of quick.
I only subbed once, and I mean it was okay, but it was uneventful.
I graduated high school when I was 17. I don't know how. My first year to teach, I was 21. But I think I was subbing at 20, and that was uncomfortable.
Yeah,
That was weird.
in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's all I wanted to do was coach. So,
right.
okay, what else?
New topic. We've been dominating with that. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
ma'am. Okay. What? Depends on the student.
Depends on the parents, too. I mean, I think it can teach you responsibility and all that. But if you're going to take, do a lot of extracurricular and have upper level classes, that's tough. I mean, I know students.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a burden, right? It can be something that benefits you, or it can be something that drives you into the ground. You have to be able to find some sort of balance if you're going to do that. Some people have to. I mean, like I'm saying, some kids have to go to work. Maybe maybe they're trying to pay for their own car. Maybe they're trying to save it for school. Whatever it is, right? I just need to go on a date and I need money. But
the most valuable thing you'll do in life, period, for the rest of your life is do something hard. Do something that's not fun, that's not easy. It wasn't easy to learn to play the guitar. I could have quit after 2 days and my fingers hurt. I was like, I'm glad that I went ahead and did it. Or taking a harder class and you get through it, looking back. So, I mean, even us at our age, we're always, I'm looking for my next thing. What am I going to dive into that I'm not good at? So I always suggest doing stuff you're not good at. Maybe as a teenager having a job that you hate and having just to endure it, even though it's horrible. It might be good for you, to have to just endure something.
I mean, it builds character. That's true. But it can be problematic if you're not able to do, because you have to go to school and function at some level, right?
Time management.
You have to you're going to get homework, and you're going to have, and maybe you have extracurricular things that you want to do too. So the job can give you money and some freedom to do some things, and you do meet people, and you learn to socially interact in that way. And you get some connections, maybe that's because you'll see these people maybe again sometime. But I know students who overdo everything basically, and then they just don't have time to get anything done and do it well. So you got to find some sort of happy medium.
Yes? Do you have something? Well, the reason we do that is because sometimes parents complain, and so we want them to approve.
Is it necessary for parents to sign off on a student schedule? That's what he asked.
I mean, once again, it depends on the parent and the kid. What the problem is, the student takes this stuff, whatever, and the parent doesn't want them to take that. Well, they come to the school and complain. So it's just a way of saying, y'all deal with it.
It helps us with
Yeah.
cutting down on some of the nonsense that we have to, because you'd be surprised how many folks come like, oh my God, what are you doing to my kid? Well, we have this piece of paper, see, and everybody signed it, and it was an agreement, So it just kind of helps with the logistics, honestly, and keeps everybody on track.
Yeah.
Now, when you go off to wherever you go next, perhaps like college or whatnot, like all of a sudden it's you. Like your folks won't have any interaction with that at all. Matter of fact, if you turn 18, even in high school, it's your schedule, right? It's your responsibility. And if they want to come up there and take care of it for you at the college, they're going to laugh at them. Sorry, this is not your stuff. Your kid's got to come take care of it. So, I mean, it'll come.
You'll all be assigned an advisor in college. That's somebody you need to really talk to a lot. But you already need to have your ducks in a row, because they're just going to tell you about classes and stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that the CAPS conference is what's necessary, but a parent signing off on the schedule isn't necessarily, because at least if you have a conference and they're hearing what their student's going to be doing next year, but the signature is basically like I'm allowing them, and they're not allowing them, it's just like,
Well, it's just agreeing that you know that this is what your student's going to be doing. That's really what it is. It's not a legal contract, but we try to hold people to it, right? But the idea is that everybody's aware of what's going to happen next year, and that we don't have any, because again, people will come up and fuss. Well, they didn't know it was going to be this and this. Well, yeah, we tried to explain it to you during the conference.
Is there a
Your signature's
downside
right
to
here.
having your parents sign off on it? What's the downside?
What?
every parent thinks that their kid is like some genius, and honestly, that's just not the truth. Like, once you're having
What?
signing your class, it's like, you know you're gonna have money not, and like, at my mom, she makes you take like math classes, like in your like math's not your strong suit maybe, and so like, but they expect you to have a certain grade, but like honestly, it's just like not feasible for that student.
Okay, well, but that's actually between you and your parent, because it's your schedule.
The teacher gives recommendations, obviously.
So, but that's between people at home. That's nothing really to do with us. Yeah, that's between y'all.
We try to say what you should do and what you shouldn't. And teachers, I know math is the big one because they know kind of what you're ready for. But I also have seen students at CAP conferences like, okay, I know I struggled this year, but next year I'm going to put it together and it's going to be a great, and then they do the exact same thing. So that motivation comes and goes.
Yeah, I mean, the dynamic is individualized but for families, right? Just whatever works for y'all works.
What else? Yes.
Based on this conversation, it's a little philosophical, I guess. But
Right.
based on this, would you guys say responsibility is the greatest, like, I guess, characteristic, like, virtue you think we can have? Like, what do you think it is? Work ethic? Like, what matters? Like, yeah.
Well, that's part of it.
There's nothing else. Like, if you can have no other good characteristic, like, which is like the best? Like, which will give you the best?
I think that work ethic and a greater sense of responsibility allows you opportunities that you wouldn't get otherwise. It's in your best interest to have that. Do you want to be dependent all your life? Do you want other people to be able to dictate to you what you're going to do rather than you decide? Right. So if you have a work ethic and you have a strong sense of responsibility, you're actually benefiting yourself by opening more doors for yourself that way, rather than waiting for someone to do it for you or hoping that they'll do it and they never do, and now you're stuck. Right. I think that's. I don't think you have to. Why do you have to have one or the other?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, if you
It's good to
you
work
have
on
to
both.
choose.
Obviously, it depends on what you mean by help, success. What is that? You know, that kind of
I
thing.
mean,
It's about money or
serial killers are motivated in their own particular way. So, I think you kind of need both.
being responsible. You're naturally going to work hard. You're naturally going to do those things that will help you in life. So being responsible for your actions and yourself is, that's number one. Now, will that make you happy? There's people that have been chasing that dream, and if I could only do this, and then I'm going to be happy, and if I could only do this, and they work themselves to death. That's not a great life either, I wouldn't think. I think there's some sort of moderation in there.
At this stage in your life, you're going to be doing a lot of running and chasing, right? But at some point, you've got to say, this is good, and I need to enjoy what it is. And so many people, I know even as adults, who will continue to chase something just for the sense of the chase, and they think, well, I've got to have this, or I've got to have that, or I've got to compete with my neighbors, or I've got to, right? And they miss out on, and I go back to what I said a while ago about the job that I had before I was a teacher. Like, it was highly competitive, and I was encouraged to be there as much as I could, and the responsibilities that I had to take care of as running a major retail operation, you've got to be, right? And I didn't micromanage, but at the same time, there were things I had to do to be there, and they sort of expect that. But what was the trade-off, right? Do I want to move up into upper management? Do I want to get into some sort of thing? Do I want to be an owner someday? And then, but what the cost was that I was missing my family. And my daughter was like 3 at the time, and she would come to the store and go, hey, Daddy's house. And I'm like, oh my God, that crushed me. Like, that crushed my soul, because I was there so much more than I was home. And she knew that she associated that building with me instead of the home with me. And I was like, oh my God, right? So yeah, I was chasing some sort of corporate sort of mentality, but then this eye-opening moment, and I finally was out of that, and brought me to another place where I could then enjoy what was really truly important. Yeah, it's so much about balance, but learning to be happy with the moment that you are in, regardless of what that is, even in the transitional periods. Learning that this is a process. I'm going to be somewhere else, but don't miss out on what's important around you and the people that are important around you, because they won't always be with you, and you need to make sure that you take time to show that appreciation, not only for your sake, but for them too, right? Because that's going to enhance their lives as well. And if nothing else that I can say to you honestly is that you can be an isolationist, and you can just be self-absorbed, and you can be that super motivated person, but honest to God, we're social people, and part of what I think our purpose is to enhance other people's lives. Otherwise, what's the point of your existence? Are you a detriment to society? Are you, even if you're just by yourself, you're sort of drawing from society in a way? Like, add to, be a plus one, give more than you take. That I think that's something that I learned. Try not to. I mean, you have to be selfish to a certain extent, but be somebody who's a quality person that's going to envelop other people into that greatness, and you can become great together. Like, that's important to do.
Yeah, I think being honest with yourself too. People deceive themselves and lie to themselves constantly. I think learning what you're good at, what you're not, and being honest with what you want to do.
Right.
You just don't want to get trapped in some career that you just can't stand because you've lied to yourself to say, this will make me happy. I mean, your hobbies should help indicate what you really like to do most of the time. So try to find, something that because we all have to run this rat race in some way. I mean, unless you're going to live with your parents forever or something. But
Which might make you happy. I don't know. It depends on
Yeah.
you, right? Might not make them happy. Yeah.
what else? Anything else?
Sure.
Yeah, and by the way, once again, we didn't know this, we couldn't say this or articulate this when we were your age, and I couldn't have said it 10 years ago. It's every year is a learning, we're still, everybody changes and grows and evolves, and the person I was 5 years ago is not the person you see before you, and who knows what it'll be in 10 years. So you have to constantly reevaluate what you think, what you believe, what you stand for, what's important to you, what's not. When you have a family, that changes everything. So you just got to be as prepared as possible.
Don't wait on people or things to make you happy, though. Like, that's what I was kind of go back to a while ago. Like, I know people who go, well, if I get this thing, I'll be happy. If I have this house, if I have this car, if I have this phone, if I have this person in my life, right, then I'll be happy. Those things aren't going to make you happy. You have to learn to find happiness within and then shine that out so other people will be attracted to it.
Yeah, that's something that's a key point, especially in a relationship with somebody, is you understanding that you cannot make that person happy. That's hard, and it might take years, but you can't make them happy, and they can't make you happy. Happiness is something you have in here, and it develops inside of you with how you live. And sometimes the person you're with makes that happiness nearly impossible. So, I've had so many students that, because I overhear people talk constantly, and then I make fun of you later. And I just don't tell you, don't think I'm paying attention, and I hear it. Like, I've had so many students that, like, I love him so much, but if he would just change this one thing, he's not going to change that. And if he does change it for you, that's just going to cause resentment. So, you got to figure out, how to be happy with yourself, and then somebody else is happy with themselves, and then every now and then it kind of fits. And there's no magic to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Controlling them, I think.
In your reaction to situations.
Do you know people who don't have the ability or lack the skill practiced enough to control their emotions in certain situations? Like this overabundance of just I got to flare out, and we see that. I think we see that overabundance in a lot of media type things, and people just I think because it's a weird sort of entertainment, I think, to a lot of people to see other people just flip out. But honestly, one of the hallmarks of being a civilized adult is being able to have an appropriate level of emotion attached to whatever is going on in your life at that moment. Like, can you, exaggerated emotion can lead to problems, whether it's excessive happiness or excessive sadness or anger or guilt or whatever. Like, you got to find that well-roundedness is very important, right? And it's difficult to do, especially at your age sometimes, because it just takes a while to kind of mellow into that moment, I think that's the beauty of being. I think we've talked about this before. Would you go back to being 18 or 19 or 20? Because there's no way. There's not a chance in the world that I would ever go back and be you guys. Not because of the life that you live, but because I've found the level of happiness that I've always sort of dreamt of because I've practiced being that person. It's just, this is a great age to be. I'm almost 50, but this is perfect.
And this is going to sound...
For me right now. But I'll be, when I'm 75 looking back, I'm like, this is perfect. I can't believe I was so stupid when I was 50. So you kind of want to continue to grow and learn and be better than you were before. I think that's part of the beauty.
Going back to high school, if I could go back and look just like I looked in high school or whatever, but had my brain that I have now, it would be, and this sounds to brag, whatever, but it would be like having a superpower. Because of the emotional maturity that I have at my age, 78, as opposed to when I was 18 and quiet in the corner. Like, and some of you, people, and there's all different types of levels of maturity, but knowing what I know about life and, paying taxes and all that stuff, like if I could go back at 18 or 17 and have this brain and know all, it would just be such an advantage.
If you had like a phrase or a comment that you could give to your 18-year-old self, what would it be? If you could communicate with you then, knowing what you know now,
quit worrying so much about what other people think about you. That's what I would tell myself. Just some of you probably don't have that problem, but when I was a kid, that's why I wouldn't talk in class. I was so worried about what other people thought. I wasn't confident in any subject. Once you got me on the field or the basketball, then I was confident. But, I would tell my little self, just talk. What's the worst that's going to happen? Be outgoing, be confident. And that's the thing. That's the big advantage I would have now is I would walk through the halls like I owned the place, even without even trying. It'd just be somebody would make fun of me or whatever. I'd be like, awesome. And then I'd just keep going. It wouldn't bother me. It would just be like, who are you? Okay, good. Thank you. And I would just be able to respond to drama so much better now.
Yeah, I think similarly, I think my phrase would just be to myself like, hey, calm down. Hey, just calm down.
Yeah, sure. It's going to be fine.
Chill. Like, don't. It's going to be all right. But you don't know that all the time. What I've learned about it is sometimes it's not like what's happening. It's not knowing what's going to happen because you're in a transition. The transitional moments are scary, right? Like something's happening, we don't know how it's going to come to fruition. We don't know what it's going to look like at the end of that particular thing, and that's irritating and scary. And people get, frustrated, and you can act out on that. But honestly, if you just plod your way through and calm yourself, that's what I've learned. If I stay calm in a situation, it's going to work itself out. Every time I've ever lost it for some reason, it's always ended up badly.
My biggest fear when I was your age was I felt like life was like a ship and it was leaving. And if I didn't jump on, I was going to end up homeless. Like I really had a fear of just being alone and having nothing. Like I really had that thing. Like, how do I get a job? How do I have money? I want to be like my parents. Like they have a house and they're doing all this hard stuff. How can I get there? And I just felt like it was leaving without me. Like I had no time. I had to, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. It wasn't that pressure cooked. It's fine. We'll figure it out.
What's fairly interesting is that when I was a little kid, small, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like I just assumed that my parents knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They know, they have a plan. There's a plan. Like they had a book somewhere that's like, now today we have to do this. Like no, there's no planner. It doesn't work. But if I wouldn't have been such in a hurry to grow up if I'd known that everything was just ad-libbed every single day. It's like, well, what's going to be today? I don't know. Let's do the best. Like that's really what life is. Learn to do the best you can with what you've given every single day.
Yeah, my kids will do something, and we're not sure. Like me and my wife will look at each other and go, should we let it slide? It's just like we don't know. All right.
Okay.
Anything else? We got a couple more minutes before
Life lessons. No, it's like it's somber, I suppose, but it's at the same time you need to learn to be better.
Be confident.
Confident and calm, yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about what people think. That's such a big problem.
That's not depressing. That's not a depressing thing
Yeah.
to say. All right, what can we say that's funny? I don't know. Yeah, go. All right. Dealing with it is the key.
I'm more emotional now, having kids, and like I feel more. I didn't care anything about kids until I had one, and now when like the kindergartners come over and they visit the high school, I'm just look how cute the little pigtails. It changed me completely. So I think I'm actually more in touch with my emotions now.
Yeah, I was going to agree. I allow myself to feel more emotions than I used to. Right, because dealing with emotions is scary, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that feeling. I was like, no, and so you just sort of bluff and forge your way through. But just to the idea that you can be emotionally sensitive, and that's sort of vulnerable, makes you vulnerable to a certain extent, right? But that's a good thing. Like I've grown as a person every time I've allowed myself to experience emotions. But I still want to be able to control it, but at the same time, let it be what it is, right? And
I think the big skill that you have as an adult, you've probably been through some stuff, and you can prioritize really quickly what's important and what's not. So it keeps you from freaking out about something that doesn't matter. That's why, like, if I went back to high school at this age, there'd be so many things I'd be like, that's insignificant. That's insignificant. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. And that's instead of being like, they looked at me funny or whatever.
Learn to prioritize.
Yeah. Because there are big things in life that really do, but then there's not. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you can just deal with it calm. Like the rest of us are like, or not my dad, he don't care. Like the rest of us like freak out on the little things, and ultimately how much does it matter? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. It's like sports. People get crazy about sports and throw stuff around.
You got to learn, like I said, learn to appreciate yourself and the value of yourself, but also the idea that, again, there are so many people at this stage in my life. There are so many people that aren't with me anymore, right? And you can lament and go, man, I wish I could have But you have to learn to let that be a thing too, right? It's you do what you do as you do, and you have to learn to kind of be okay with the consequences. And if, for instance, like my father passed away several years ago, and we had a very strained relationship, and really never that really never worked its way out, right? And I've had to learn to deal with the guilt of not trying harder in that situation. But instead of dwelling on that, I just kind of go, well, it just is what it is, you know. And it's not like I don't care, but I have to kind of learn to go on in spite of that, and try to be something better because of it. You know, learn from those things.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we're about to wrap this up. It's already 5 minutes.
It's all about getting in touch with our feelings now.